Remember that he represents in the minds of many people around the world someone who has decided to challenge not just American military and political hegemony, but American and Western financial hegemony. The World Bank and associated institutions have effectively been puppets for U.S. and allied foreign policy. And if you don't do what we tell you to do, then we won't lend you the money that you want. We talk all the time about the Chinese supposedly blackmailing people by lending them lots of money and then holding them accountable. Well, we do the same thing, only we do it in more subtle ways that are actually more damaging to the society because we're very intrusive. We're not just interested in the specific project. We're trying to restructure people's societies, change their cultures. So you have people in Africa, Latin America, much of Asia, who are very sympathetic to the Russians, who are seen as standing up to this.
Welcome to a new chapter in the story of a continent. As Mr. Douglas Macgregor insightfully observed, Africa is experiencing a seismic shift, a surge of self-determination and assertiveness against external influence. Today, we delve into the heart of this land of diverse cultures and rich histories. Recent developments, especially in nations like Senegal, epitomize this change. They're taking bold steps towards controlling their own destiny, challenging long-standing Western dominance. Join us as we explore these winds of change sweeping across Africa, reshaping its political landscape and forging a new path forward. In Senegal, a statement of independence echoes. The newly elected president, Bassirou Diomaye, made his intentions clear. It's time for French forces to leave Senegal. This bold move isn't an isolated incident but part of a larger pattern across the continent. For centuries, Africa has been a tapestry on which foreign powers have tried to imprint their influence, with France being a prominent figure. From colonial rule to modern-day military presence, France's footprint in Africa is undeniable. The reason behind this pushback? A yearning for autonomy and a rejection of what many see as neo-colonial practices. African nations are increasingly scrutinizing their relationships with former colonial powers, seeking to rewrite a narrative of dependence into one of empowered partnership or, in some cases, complete severance. As Senegal sets a precedent, similar sentiments reverberate across the continent. From Mali to Burkina Faso, nations are re-evaluating their ties with Western countries, reshaping the geopolitical landscape of Africa. This uprising against the West isn't occurring in a vacuum. As Africa asserts its stance, other global players are stepping in, reshaping the continent's alliances. This leads us to Russia and China, whose roles in backing African sovereignty are becoming increasingly significant. Across the African continent, a wave of anti-Western sentiment is not just rising, it's cresting. This resistance is a response to a pattern long observed but often unspoken. Western powers, particularly the United States, have a history of imposing their will on other nations. It's a strategy combining financial leverage, through institutions like the World Bank, and military might, evidenced by over 800 military bases worldwide and the formidable presence of 11 aircraft carrier groups. Retired U.S. Army Colonel Douglas Macgregor, a vocal critic of these practices, articulates a growing concern. He argues that the U.S. and its Western allies often seek to impose their political, cultural, and societal models on other countries. This one-size-fits-all approach, he notes, ignores the unique histories and cultures of these nations, leading to inevitable pushback. Africa is no stranger to this. For decades, Western influence has extended beyond mere diplomacy into more direct interventions. But the continent is evolving, pushing back against these external pressures. African nations are reclaiming their right to self-determination, to define their own cultural, societal, and political paths. The resistance isn't just against military bases or financial strings. It's a broader struggle against the loss of identity and autonomy. In a world increasingly interconnected yet diverse, the African lash back is a statement. It's about refusing to have foreign models superimposed on indigenous ways of life. From the Sahara to the Cape, from Senegal to Somalia, African voices are demanding respect for their sovereignty and their own development paths. This resurgence of African agency is setting the stage for new alliances. As the West faces resistance, Eastern powers like Russia and China see an opportunity. Their involvement in Africa takes a different form, one that resonates more with the aspirations of African nations. This shift in alliances is underpinned by a rich history of Eastern involvement in Africa. Russia and China have been players on the African stage for decades, offering an alternative to Western influence. As we turn to their roles in backing African sovereignty, let's delve into the historical context that has paved the way for their current involvement. As Africa turns a new page in its history, two nations, Russia and China, emerge as key partners in this era of transformation. Their approach is distinct, forging relationships based on respect for sovereignty and mutual benefit. Let's begin with Russia. Their influence in Africa is not just a recent development. It's a nuanced relationship built over decades, marked by strategic partnerships and support in times of need. Russia's presence extends from the Mediterranean shores to the heart of Central Africa, establishing itself as a reliable ally for several African nations. In recent years, African nations like Nigeria, Ghana, and Zimbabwe have shown a growing affinity towards the BRICS bloc, of which Russia is a key member. This shift symbolizes a realignment from Western influence to more diverse, global partnerships. Now, let's turn our gaze to China. Their engagement with Africa has been transformative. It's not just about economic investments, it's about building a shared future. The Belt and Road Initiative, a colossal project stretching from the West African coast to the Red Sea, stands as a testament to China's commitment to African development. Both Russia and China's involvement in Africa is a contrast to the Western model. Where the West often imposes its will through financial and military might, these Eastern powers offer a partnership that resonates with the aspirations of African nations. This evolving dynamic is not just about politics. It's about respecting the cultural, societal, and political uniqueness of African nations. As African countries voice their right to choose their allies and chart their own paths, Russia and China stand alongside them, offering a hand of friendship and cooperation. Understanding this historical context is crucial to grasp the current geopolitical shifts. This rich history between Africa, Russia, and China sets the stage for the future, a future where alliances are diversified and partnerships are founded on mutual respect and shared goals. To fully appreciate the current geopolitical landscape in Africa, one must delve into the past. The historical ties between Africa, Russia, and China are deep, complex, and transformative, marked by pivotal moments and sustained cooperation. Rewinding to the mid-20th century, Russia's influence in Africa became prominent during the Cold War era. Their support for liberation movements and newly independent African states was a defining characteristic of their foreign policy. Not just political rhetoric, but substantial support in the form of military training, weapons, and educational programs marked this era. Turning to China, their engagement with Africa started in the 1950s, initially driven by ideological solidarity. This evolved into pragmatic economic cooperation. One landmark event was the construction of the Tanzania-Zambia Railway in the 1970s, a project that symbolized China's commitment to African development and infrastructure. The depth of these relationships is underscored by figures and facts. From the 2000s onward, China's trade with Africa soared, reaching $200 billion in recent years. Meanwhile, Russia's export of arms to Africa accounted for 30% of the total arms import by African nations, solidifying its role as a key defense partner. These historical ties between Africa, Russia, and China are not mere footnotes in history. They are chapters that have shaped the continent's trajectory. As Africa navigates its path in the 21st century, the legacy of these relationships influences its choices and alliances. This rich history sets the stage for today's geopolitical shifts, signaling a future of diversified alliances and new partnerships. As we look to the horizon, the echoes of the past shape the melodies of Africa's future. A future where the continent's voice is louder, its choices broader, and its partnerships more varied. In our concluding thoughts, let's reflect on the words of Douglas Macgregor and the essence of Africa's narrative. This is a time like no other, a time when the Black Continent is breaking the chains with its inner strength, rising from the shadows of external influence to the dawn of self-determination. Africa, a tapestry of diverse cultures and rich histories, is now pivoting towards a future of its own making. Every step taken by African nations today is a stride towards autonomy, A move away from a past dictated by others to a future shaped by their own will. It's a journey of reclamation, of culture, identity, and sovereignty. As partnerships evolve, they do so on terms set by Africa for Africa. The narrative we've witnessed is profound. It's a story of empowerment and resilience, where the continent's voice isn't just heard, it resonates. Here, at this pivotal moment, Africa isn't just standing, it's soaring, ready to shape its destiny and embrace a future marked by shared goals and mutual respect. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey. As we witness Africa's transformative chapter unfold, we do so with admiration and anticipation. Africa's time is now, and the world watches, inspired by its ascent. Thanks for watching.